In the video game Airline Manager 4, what is the best plane? I went through all the efficiency. The A380-800 is one of the best planes in the game. So at the at the lower tiers, the vehicle that I first played was a Saab 90 Scandia. I would buy a lot of these, and I tested various aircraft. And the reason why is because it does hold a lot of passengers, and it's about 3 passenger per pound of fuel. And once you play the game, you're going to realize that the cost of fuel is very important, and you want to keep the cost of fuel as low as possible. So I would buy a lot of these Scandias, and I would use this to earn money for more expensive aircraft. And I'm only showing the Global 7500 and the Global 8000 because of their range. 14,600 kilometers, but only 17 passengers, which means it's less fuel efficient than the Scandia. But it's something that would be fun to play. Just pointing it out because of the range, and there might be planes that have similar range. The Stratocruiser is the aircraft that I am flying right now. I own about 7 of these, and it does 117 passengers for every 29 pounds of fuel, which is about 4 passengers per pound. The best plane does 30 passengers per pound. So this is only to get you started out. You notice this one over here, it's about 8 or 9 passengers per pound. So the Fokker 70A gives you a lot more fuel efficiency. However, the range is a lot lower. The Stratocruiser will do a distance 3 times as greater. When you play the Fokker, you're going to have to log in. You would log in more often. For example, 4 or 5 times a day to schedule your flights with this aircraft. With the Stratocruiser, I only log in once a day, maybe twice a day. It's only a stepping stone to get to a more fuel-efficient plane. Now, keep in mind, it's a good idea to have one that hauls a lot of passengers and have one that's extremely fuel-efficient, because if you run out of fuel and you have no money, you want to have something that can do short trips that makes a little bit amount of money, which is perfect English, and is very fuel efficient, that you can make a little bit of money per day in order to build up your finances again. The Caravelle, I'm going to use this as an example, and there's many of them in the game. It gives you 10 passengers per pound of fuel. Now keep in mind, I've already told you that 30 per pound is the best, but you can't afford that plane. So this is actually really fuel efficient. If you can get the Caravelle, the only issue is the range is only 2,300, which means that you're going to have to log into the game 4 or 5 times a day in order to make enough money to equal what you might make with some of the planes that have a longer range. You're just going to have to put a little bit more work into it. Like I said, there are other planes that are fuel efficient that I did not highlight. I only did some of them. Here's another example. It's 50 passengers per 5 pounds. This is also 10 to 1. And this one is also 10 to 1. And the ERJ does 3,700 kilometers for about the same price as the Caravelle. So you get 1.5 times the distance. You're going to be hauling fewer passengers, but you can check less often during the day. And the ARJ has 98 passengers. This one has 99 passengers. They haul about the same amount of passengers. They do about the same amount of distance. They do about the same price, and the speed is about the same. So that shows you how those two planes are very similar spec-wise. This is a very interesting plane. It does 11 passengers per pound. It's got a greater range, 3,100. And it's a similar price to those other ones. Over here, we've got the Tupolev, which is, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 passengers per pound. got the B717-200, which is about the same. 14 or 15 passengers per pound, 3,800 kilometers range, which is really good for 2.2 million. We're going to see some really good planes coming along. Now we get up to a 4.4 million plane. This is really a good value. The B737-800, 7,000 kilometers, 18 passengers per pound. Now, if you compare this to the Stratocruiser, Stratocruiser is 6,700. The B737 was 8,000. And this is only 4-to-1. And this one is 18-to-1. So if you can save your, once you do the Stratocruiser, maybe you're going to move up to one of the $1.2 million dollar planes. You want to try to make it to this plane for 4.4 million. I actually have this much money. I could buy this plane and just sell off the other planes. Sell off your other planes and convert them all into B737-800s as quickly as you can. It's not the only one that has a good value. I'm scanned it real quick, and I'm just pointing out this is the one that jumps out. For example, look at the Tupolev, half the range. And the fuel usage isn't that much different. It's obviously the B737 is more efficient, but it makes the B737 a better choice. Now we got these Tupolevs. These have better fuel efficiency than the B737. And we're looking at 4.4 million compared to 6.4 million. So you spend a little bit more money, you're going to get 20-to-1 instead of 14-to-1. You get a good speed, but only half the range. So if you don't mind checking more frequently per day, like twice a day or 3 times a day, you might want to go with the Tupolevs and make sure you use stopovers as much as you can. So these Tupolevs are actually a pretty good deal. 20-to-1 fuel consumption per passenger. But then you get to the B737 MAX 10. 30-to-1. 225 passengers for every 7 pounds of fuel, 7,000 kilometer range, 839 kilometers per hour. This beats those Tupolevs by 50%. But you got to have the money. You got to pay triple the price. So once you get those Tupolevs, and I'm not saying that there's not another good plane, because if you look at all of these planes, this is 20-to-1. This one is over 20-to-1. This one's 25-to-1. This is almost 30-to-1. You got a lot of options. You might want to pick up the A320neo. It's at 14 million instead of the Tupolev. You might want to try for that, or use this as a stepping stone to get the B737 MAX 10. So you've got a lot of choices in the game. And like I said, look on your own. Part of the fun of the game is deciding for yourself what plane you're going to get. And then you get up to the A380-800. It's also 30-to-1. 215 million, 14,500 range. So compared to the B737, you got to pay more than 10 times as much, but you get double the range. With double the range, that means you don't have to check every day. Maybe you could check every 2 days, but you got to have the money to buy the plane. So your goal should be to get the B737 MAX 10 or anyone else who has specifications that are similar. For example, you see the MAX 9 is similar, but the B787 is lower performance. However, look at that range, 14,800. So if you're only going to be checking once in a while, you might want to get that B787. And over here, we got some good deals. This is 20-to-1. This is more than 20-to-1. This is more than 20-to-1. You got a lot of choices here. Half the price of the A380-800. There's a lot of good planes over here. These are all good deals. So ultimately, I recommend the A380-800 as the most fuel-efficient plane in the game with the greatest distance. And I recommend you start out with the Scandia when you're learning how to play the game. Or maybe a Saab 340. I played a lot of Saab 340s, but it's not as fuel efficient as a Scandia. Yeah, you don't want to play the Saab. Now, planes like the Phenoms, they're fun to play, but you're not going to make any money. So you're going to see they have these great ranges, and you're going to see planes that have great speed, like the Legacy series. You're not going to make any money. So that's my advice. Start with the Scandia, get up to the Stratocaster, or depending on how often you want to check, if you check more often, try a Fokker, and then work your way up through these planes until you get to the final one, which is the A380-800. It might take you more than a month to get it, maybe 2 months, maybe more. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.